He is tall, he is enthusiastic, and I can't do 3 words, works hard, I think. I come from a little town called Crawley in West Sussex, and when I went to university, I wanted to make sure that I went somewhere that was a slightly bigger city, and I'd heard a lot about Sheffield. My sister had been there as well, and she'd loved it. And Sheffield had a really good history course at the time, and I read the statistic that probably everyone else has read, that more people stay in Sheffield than any other university once they've been there. And I just really wanted to go to a different part of the country to study. And as soon as I went to Sheffield on the open day, I thought it was a lovely place. The people were really kind and friendly. The city's got a lovely buzz about it. It feels big, but not too big, if you know what I mean. Yeah, I love my time in Sheffield, and I still live in Sheffield, so it must be a nice place. Your experience as a student is slightly different to your experience as a resident, and as, I suppose, a parent as well in Sheffield, because you get to use the city in a slightly different way. But it was brilliant for me when I was a student, but it's just equally fantastic now, I think. I do feel that Sheffield always feels like a lot of villages together. That's the sort of way I would describe it, because it hasn't got the lack of sort of care that some big cities have, where you sort of can disappear. I think there's a real sort of community spirit in many parts of Sheffield. And the Peak District is on your doorstep, which is always lovely if you want to get out into the great outdoors. You're only 2 hours away from London, and I commute to London quite a bit. I lived in Sheffield and worked in Manchester for a long time, so it's sort of easily accessible, although somebody needs to build a motorway underneath the Peak District. That'd be very helpful. But I think there is so much that Sheffield has to offer. And I do think, lots of my friends who come up from London, and people like my dance partner in Strictly, Nadia, who'd not been to Sheffield before other than to perform at the arena. Once she came, met the people and lived in the city for a bit during Strictly, she loved it. And I think it was quite nice to see somebody who'd not really experienced Sheffield before coming and realising what a lovely city it was, filled with great people. And I think Sheffield also, it gets behind people and it supports people and it's proud. And I think that's a lovely qualities. So, we love living here. I've had many brilliant years at the BBC. I've worked with some amazing people, really enjoyed it. But I've managed to do all the things that I wanted to do at the BBC. I presented Match of the Day. I presented Football Focus for 12 years. I was one of the main presenters on BBC Breakfast for 6.5 years. I've done a quiz show. I did Strictly. I did a radio programme. Did a talk show, documentaries. Done Radio 2 Breakfast with Zoe Ball for a bit. I'd done so many things at the BBC, and I just felt it was time for a new challenge, really. And Channel 5 came along and said, we'd love you to come and do some news for us, but also make lots of other programmes and almost like be a face of the channel. I don't think you get many opportunities like that in TV. So, and Channel 5 has changed an awful lot in the last few years. I don't think maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I maybe wouldn't have gone there, but they make a lot of great commissioning decisions. They're making a lot of programmes, which I think some of the other broadcasters should be making. And when we thought about it as a family as well, a lot of the stuff that we watch on telly as a family is on Channel 5. So, it's always a big decision to leave somewhere gigantic like the BBC. But I've only left breakfast. I can still work for the BBC. I'm a freelance basically, so I can hopefully come back and do other things with the BBC in the future, which would be lovely. I've still got lots of friends there, still speak to them regularly. And I think I managed to leave with the sort of dignity required that shows that it's not a case of, oh, I can't bear the way you do things, I'm off. But I've really enjoyed my time there. I still think they make great programs, and I still think the BBC is a really important part of the broadcasting landscape. But I really fancied a new challenge, and we're doing Channel 5's going really well. We've got more people watching the news. My job essentially was to make sure that people knew there was a news show on at 5 o'clock on Channel 5, and the other part of my job is to try and encourage people to watch it. So we're going all right at the minute. I've only been there 6 weeks, but it's been lovely so far. I think if I could probably pick three, I think I'd bring lots of things into one. That would be friendships that I've made along the way, both on air and off air. Some pundits who I really looked up to as a kid and I've become friends with, people like Alan Shearer, the people that I've got to work with as producers and directors and editors. So I think friendship has been a really big part of it, and that's something which will stay with me for a very long time. The second thing that really stands in my mind would be Gary Speed, really, because we did a program with him the day before he took his own life, and that's something I think about a lot. For those that don't know, Gary was a really well-known footballer and manager. He was the boss of the Wales national side at the time, and I've watched the show back. It didn't appear that there was anything wrong with him. I've gone through that day in minute detail, recalled conversations and all the things that I said to him and he said to me and the way that he said it. But I still remember getting the phone call the next day to say that he'd taken his own life, and I don't think we'll ever know exactly why and what was going on. But it remains a real sadness to me and to many other people as well. And I still speak to his family about it. I still think about it a lot. I've written about it, and I think that's the sort of thing that doesn't leave you, really. And the third thing would be some of the programs that we've made. I spent Christmas in Afghanistan with the British troops, filming a Football Focus, which was amazing. We did one live in Brazil for the World Cup draw. We've been all around the world. And I remember, in terms of people that I've met that you think, wowzers, what an amazing cast list. I did a program in Barcelona once, and it was all about the way that they run their club. And we turned up on the day that they were giving awards out to some of their Barcelona legends. So there were some amazing people in the room. You can imagine anybody who's ever played for Barcelona who was alive was there. And then while they were talking, the entire first team squad came in as well. So it was a pretty glittering room, and we got to interview as many of them as we wanted. And there was one very strange moment where Eusebio, the great Eusebio, came up to us and said, hello, I'm here to do an interview for the BBC. And I had to say to him, Eusebio, I'm really sorry. Can I come back to you in 10 minutes? I've just got to go and speak to Sir Bobby Charlton and Johan Cruyff. So it was one of those. And he went, okay, yeah. So I was there having in the end, about a 15-minute conversation with Sir Bobby Charlton and Johan Cruyff about how the game should be run. The Manchester United model with a foreign owner and foreign investment, and the Barcelona model with a crowd, supporter-owned and supporter run club, where the Mescain club, it's more than a club, is their motto. So I think it was very days like that, you sort of pinch yourself and think, wowzers. So it's hard for me to sort of pick out one moment. I've tried to pick out three, and it's turned out to be about 400. So sorry about that. But I loved it. I loved the program. I loved going around the country and visiting some of the smaller grounds for the FA Cup. I loved the big occasions like the World Cups and the FA Cups and the European Championships. I've got so many memories. Good question. I don't think journalists help themselves, or we don't help ourselves at times. I mean, I'm one of those people who occasionally absolute rubbish gets written about. And I've challenged some journalists on some of the stuff that they write and said, why have you got to write that? And they're under pressure to feed a sort of clickbait beast, which doesn't help the profession, I don't think, because a lot of it is factually incorrect. A lot of it is based on one single headline, which doesn't then end up being backed up by the body of the story, but not many people read the body of the story, so they're misled by the headline. And I think there is a lot of sensationalism. There's a lot of factual inaccuracy. And I think that really does damage the profession of journalism. But I also think there are a lot of brilliant journalists out there who are doing amazing work. And I think journalism is a brilliant profession. I know if you look at a list of the least popular people in the country, journalists, politicians, and estate agents are normally in the top 3. And I think, you know, we've got to defend our profession, and we've got to do a good job. And I think I always get excited when I talk to new journalists. I'm fortunate enough to get an honorary degree from Sheffield, and I got another honorary degree from Solent University in Southampton recently. And I spoke to some of their students there, and I said that journalism is a really important profession, because you actually have an opportunity to change the world. And there's not many jobs that give you that chance. And you change the world by telling the truth, by holding power to account, by asking questions, by, you know, digging deep, by not taking no for an answer sometimes, by asking the question time and time and time again, by being persistent, by being thrown out, by being chased down a train, whatever it might be. And I think I've always found journalism and broadcasting to be a real privilege, because you get the opportunity to be a voice for people who don't have a voice, and to be a shield for those who don't have any weapons. And I think that is a really incredible job and an incredible profession to be part of. And that's why I do get annoyed sometimes with some of the rubbish that gets written, and some of the national newspapers in our country, which I don't think represent the profession correctly. But I do think there are, and I've witnessed it, and I've worked with many people who are brilliant, who are diligent, who are hardworking, and care about the stories that they write and report on. And I think those are the people that I hope continue to do the job to the best of their ability. And that's also one of the reasons why, you know, I've just written a new book which comes out in October, and I wrote one 2 years ago. And the reason why I wrote them is because I was asked to write an autobiography, and I thought, well, I don't really want to do that, because only really my mum will read that. I think she'd buy about 6 copies, but that's not enough to fulfill a print run. So I said, can I write about other people instead? And that's what I did. I wrote one book called Remarkable People, which is about some of the people that I've met and worked with and interviewed. And I wrote another book, which comes out in October, as I said, called Standing on the Shoulders, which is again about other people. And these are the people who, as a journalist, I interviewed them, or I've met them, and I thought that there's more to you than meets the eye. And I've gone back and re-interviewed them and learned a bit more about what makes them tick, and how they have gone into some of the deepest and darkest holes that we can go to as humans and come out the other side. And some of them are still in those incredibly long, dark tunnels, and the light at the end seems like a very far way away, but they somehow have found a way through it. And some of them are really broken, but they're brilliant at the same time. And I've really enjoyed telling their stories. And yeah, I love writing about other people. I love the profession of journalism, but I think journalists should be held to really high standards. And there's nothing wrong with that. And when you fall below those standards, and I've probably done it as well myself, there's nothing wrong with being told that's not good enough, or you haven't done that in the right way. So I don't mind being questioned on occasions about the things that I've done or said or reported on. And you know, I know I've made mistakes, but I like to think that I get better every day. I think the way I switch off is I maintain perspective, and I don't worry about some of the things that you might think that I worry about. Or I like to describe it in terms of all the words that start with F. I'm not interested in fame. I'm not interested in fortune, and I'm not interested in the froth that goes with the fame and the fortune. But the Fs that I am inspired by are, you know, my family, my faith, and my friends. And those are the things that sort of keep me going. And I can't think of a way to make it an F, but I also like golf. Because golf is I love sport, so I love playing sport. And golf is something which I really enjoy because it's probably the one time that I switch off. I don't look at my phone. I just enjoy the sunshine, hopefully, and the smells and the sights of the golf course and the people that I'm playing with, and I just think about nothing but the next shot. And I quite enjoy that switch off moment. But I think my family, my faith, and my friends also help to give me a real sense of perspective, and they don't allow me to get too carried away with the highs and too worried about the lows. And I think that's really important in life in general. I get asked a lot about, some of the very negative things that people will say about you, and I get that every day. Every day people will send you horrible messages, letters, emails, the occasional death threat. And it genuinely doesn't bother me, because I know that I'm valued, and I know that my value doesn't come from what people think or say about me. They'd asked me, I think 4 years on the trot, they asked me, and then I said yes the 5th year. I said no the first 4 times. Just because I was busy. I was busy working on Football Focus, so I couldn't. Saturdays were a problem. I was busy with life and jobs and everything. And the other element was I thought I'd be absolutely horrific, so I didn't really want to embarrass myself on national TV. But in the end, my kids asked me if I would do it, and I'd stopped doing Football Focus, so I was free. And I think also the other reason was that I'd done 18 months of just every day talking about death tolls from coronavirus, and I just thought, I just want to do something that I don't have to think about and I can just enjoy. And it ended up being one of the best things I've ever done on telly. I absolutely loved it, and I loved it from the preamble. I've written a bit about it in the book, because I've written one of the people. The whole point of writing Standing on the Shoulders was it's all about people who help you to see a little bit further than you would on your own. It's a slight shortening of an Isaac Newton quote. He was asked how he's been able to achieve so much, and he said, if I've been able to see a long way, it's because I've been standing on the shoulders of giants. And that, even my dance partner Nadia Bishkova, who I was partnered with on Strictly, it does sound a bit weird, because essentially it's just dancing, but it's a bit more than that, because it was something that, as a non-dancer and somebody who was genuinely worried and a little bit scared of going on a dance floor because I'm so big and awkward, she sort of said, listen, I can teach you this, and if you enjoy it, the people will enjoy watching you enjoying it. And it was something that I completely shut my mind off to my whole life, thinking that's something that other people do and other people are good at, and I can't be that person, so I'll just forget about it. And weirdly, it was like learning a new language and learning a new way of expressing yourself. And I honestly had the best time. And I said to her right at the start, I said, listen, on day one, I said, why has no one ever told me that dancing was this much fun? And I could see the sort of, fire behind her eyes, thinking, right, I can teach you. And I've always worked hard. And I said to Nadia right at the start, I said, I will not go out this competition for lack of trying. I might be rubbish. I've told everybody I know that I'll be in for 2, maximum 3 weeks. But I will work my backside off for you. And also, I want you to enjoy this as much as I enjoy it. So I don't really get nervous on telly. And I said to her, I don't mind about the Saturday night performance element. That's not a problem. I'll love that, because I love live telly and I love big audiences. The only thing we've got to worry about is you teaching me the dancing, because I won't worry about that. I'm going out there to have the best time every single Saturday night. And that's what we did. And I think that's why somehow we lasted for 3 months, made it all the way to the quarterfinals, and we were never in the bottom 2, which was amazing. And we got so many lovely, encouraging, kind messages from people who'd started dancing, watching us dancing. I met an old man in the park in Sheffield who said that his wife had died about 30 years before. They used to dance together, and he'd stopped dancing, but watching me learn to dance on Strictly had given him the get up and go to go back and start dancing lessons again, which is lovely. And I'm not like I don't dance every day now, but the best way to put it is I'm not a dancer, but I know I can dance. And that is a complete mindset change to where I was before it started. So yeah, and it's helped. I mean, I was always a confident person, but if it's possible, it's made me more confident. I suppose it's added dancing to my confident armory. I think it's probably made me a better presenter. And and again, this comes across in the book. What I love most about the experience is that I think Nadia was a really confident dancer, but not that confident on telly outside of a dance floor. And I was really confident on telly, but not that confident on a dance floor. And I think we were really able to help each other. And, you know, that, to me, that's what life is about, isn't it? It's about helping those around you, making a difference to those around you, and giving them the confidence to be able to do something which they felt they might not be able to. And I think we were able to help each other in that way. And that's why we're still really good friends now. And that's why I think we'll be friends for a long time. It's just, in my head, it's just the right thing to do. I mean, I think when I did courses at university, I did a degree in history and I did a postgraduate course in broadcast journalism. And the bits that really stuck with me, particularly for the journalism course, was when somebody who was in the industry came back and told me what it was like and gave me a bit of insight. And I think that's invaluable. And I enjoy watching other people succeed. I enjoy watching other people shine. I'm happy to help out and, you know, be a part of all this, but can we have a bursary scheme whereby, you know, we sponsor 2 students who are from backgrounds maybe that wouldn't go into journalism or don't have the money to do the course, but could be great journalists. Let's fund 2 of them every year. And we've done that. And I think we're in our 5th year now, and all those people are working somewhere in the industry, which is amazing. I'm still in contact with all of them. One of them, Emma, she's just been nominated for a journalism award, and she was stacking shelves in Waitrose. She had a 5-year plan to be a journalist and fund herself through university. And she applied for the scheme, was successful, and we were able to give her that money straight away. And now she's a journalist being brilliant. So, you know, people like her are a real success story. And I don't understand. I can't fathom why you would climb up a ladder if your only reason for doing that is to get as high as you can, when in actual fact it's just as important to look down the ladder and to pull some other people up to get as high as they can, rather than just thinking of yourself. The way I can best explain it is I was listening to the radio about maybe 10 years ago. There was a national radio station and they were doing a charity raffle for a big national charity. And the first bid was £1. And within about 10 minutes, it had gone to, like, you know, 1,500 quid. And in a very short space of time, it was £1.5 million raffle, because he had 1.5 million quid, and everybody else who bid for it or was interested in it was basically not important. And I was in a taxi at the time. I remember having a conversation with the taxi driver, and we both sort of said, what about the 1.5 million people who probably would have given a quid, and then you could have drawn it out of the hat, and then all of those people would have been involved and felt like they were part of the community. Everybody would have given £1. And surely those 1.5 million pound coins are worth more than the 1.5 million pounds from one person. And that's sort of been rattling around my mind for a long time. So I came up with this idea and mentioned it to some friends in Sheffield a few years ago. And we've finally got it sorted with some big sponsors in Sheffield, and we've got it up and running now. And we're just trying to get people involved. And it's simply called the Sheffield 1000. And the idea is, can we get 1,000 people to donate £1 a week, which would then be given out to people in Sheffield, charities, good causes, individuals. And as soon as you start giving £1, you can then nominate a good cause, an individual, or a charity. So the idea is to get to 1,000 people and to give away every single week of the year £1,000. And the thing I love about it is that my 11-year-old son can give £1 a week, but the richest man in Sheffield can also only give £1 a week. I don't want his £10,000 or his £500,000 that he might be willing to donate. All we want is £1, because the important thing is that everybody gives the same amount and everybody's involved. A great sort of utopian scheme is that you are living and giving in the same small community in Sheffield. And yeah, I'd love for it to be successful and to work and to be something that Sheffielders can really get behind. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.